in political philosophy, or at least have had a class in political philosophy. And I want you to understand it and analyze what the Pope is saying about the environment and the action. It's about the action that really. And but what is he saying about the environmental crisis? What is he saying about our need to act that you can understand and explain from any of the philosophers or the framework that we use in our class? Now, how will you do that? It's up to you. That's the no, you're free to reflect on it from your perspective. Have you seen it? Is it open already? Not yet. Okay. Maybe it's not yet open. I'll open it already. Ah, what's today? Oh. So it's June the 12th. Oh, it's been open from yesterday pa. Okay. Aha, you're not looking at your ano. Anyway, I'm gonna read you the questions. Okay. So there are two questions. The first question is discuss the political issue raised in Laudato Deum. Although it's a work on the environment, there are political questions being raised. What are they? Okay. Then that's the first question. So it's really up to you. There are many. There are many. Just choose one that you can how will you choose the one you understand and the one you can discuss best? Okay? So and then you have to explain to me why it's a political issue. Okay? What it has what makes it political? Okay. And then the second question is how would you respond to these political questions? Analyze them using one or more of the frameworks we used in class. So let's say identify a political question based on Laudato Si. Like for instance, the failure of the international bodies or the failure of the failure of international bodies to act effectively against climate change, something like that. Okay, so how would you reflect on that politically? I mean, from any of our perspectives, is it something you could discuss from the perspective of natural law? Is it something that you could understand from the perspective of how Plato would like to govern people or people should be governed? Is the climate question a failure of governance from a Platonic perspective, or or do you think the people don't act together because there's no effective fiction that gathers us and things like that? Anything, okay, that kind of thing. So it's up to you, okay. How will I grade you? I'm gonna grade you based of first of all in identifying and explaining what the political issue is. So figure out what the political issue is and explain to me why you think it's a political issue. Secondly, um, secondly, how do how do you use one of our frameworks or two or whatever to explain your own reflection? By respond, I mean what's your reflection? What's your insight about it? Okay? You don't have to give me a solution, okay? All right, don't feel like you have to give me a solution to the climate problem. Okay, just be able to discuss the climate problem using the political issue that you identified using one of our frameworks. All right, that's your last written reading test. It's due on Friday. Okay.
Sir,
Now, yes.
just to make just to make it clear, sir, we only have to identify one political issue,
Yes.
any political issue, and then we are going to explain why it is a political issue
That's number
by
one.
site. That's number one.
Yeah.
Okay, number two is, let me see the question. It's like, how would you respond to this political question So this is now where the
Reflection. Yeah.
reflection comes in, sir.
Yeah.
Because how would we are we going to respond using the I really thought, sir, that I am just going to use just the recent discussion that we have. So
Oh,
I can choose
yeah.
from the
Yeah. Any.
from the previous discussions also.
Yes. This is,
Uh,
although I could, di ba, you can see how Harari can fit in, right?
yes.
You can already imagine how you can use Harari. If you really want to use natural law, that also fits in. Or social
Yeah,
contract,
social
right? I mean,
contract, for example. So
for instance, social contract. So choose the
mm,
one. So guys, choose the one you can explain best. Okay. This is your chance. The one you can explain best. So there, right? So if you want to use Harari, again, that's fine. Okay. Um, there are no required. Hello, Nadim. You look like an angel today. I don't want to comment on it. Baka maano eh, baka maun siya Mia. Pero there are no requirements of lengths of paragraph, no. But I just really, sometimes, guys, you just state it without explaining. That's my problem. When you just state it without explaining. Like you might say, the political issue here is the lack of cooperation between countries in order to respond to this problem. That's it. And then like, okay, why? Why is it a political issue? In this case, you have to explain why it's political, right? There. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so you get it. So there. But there's no, like, you don't have to write a long thing in order to answer to it. Okay. Um, yeah. You know what, in the last test, did you see already? I checked the last test. I'm sorry. I just found it funny in the last test. Because most of you got the point, right? That no. What was the fiction? And then you're all saying, like, yeah, you know what the fiction was that gathered them? The fiction of human rights or social justice and all of that. That's correct. That's really correct. But the real fiction, at the heart of it all, the very fundamental fiction. And I thought this test was easy because it's such a giveaway. But then the fundamental fiction was Christianity. Of course, a lot of you got that. But and then the ones who didn't say Christianity, that's okay because you're right. Social justice and human rights are a fiction that really helped. But I'm just laughing because I think you guys have such a hard time thinking about Christianity as a fiction. You're like, it's not a fiction. It's the way, the truth, and the life. And I can't call it the fiction because you're on the verge of calling it the fiction, and but then you just say human rights and all of that, and you even mentioned the church as the shepherd, but you don't say that Christianity is the fiction. Anyway, guys, it's okay to say that Christianity is the fiction, okay? Because it doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it doesn't speak about the truth. It just means it's a particular human construct to explain certain realities. And you're like, what? No, Christianity is divine revelation. Yeah, but your particular Christianity is a human construct, right? The Catholic Church, am I allowed to say this? But the Catholic Church is a particular fiction of how we understand Christ's message to be. That's why we can't condemn the other churches because they're also versions of the same fiction, right? It's just ours is the correct one. But we don't tell them that. I'm kidding. No, but right, everyone has. I mean, if as long as they're true to Jesus and the faith in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, Son of God, diba? They're all particular interpretations of the reality of Jesus as the Son of God and Savior, diba? But in the end, and that's we're just saying that it's a fiction, right? Anyway, that's just yes, the Apostles' Creed is a articulation of of our fiction. Yeah, that's good, brother Mark. Yeah, um, the Apostles' Creed is the formulation is a particular formulation, the one of the most precise formulations of the fiction of the church. Is it wrong? No. Does it lead us to the truth? Yes, you know what I'm saying? But it's we in the terms lang of ano, in the terms of Harari, that's what he means by a fiction, right? That's why every Easter and every mass time we have to say it. Why? Because it gathers us together. Reminds us what our fiction is. There, see? That's why we can act together. Okay, anyway, that's that. Um, so that's what I had to say. Yeah, any more? Okay, how about the reports? So next week when we meet, we're just gonna listen to the reports. Oh, and then I'll have some things to say, of course, about the reports. Does anyone have questions about the report? The basic parameters are 20 minutes. Okay, so you should talk for 20 minutes. Okay, sorry. You don't have to talk for 20 minutes. But the maximum of your speaking is 20 minutes. Okay? So you will report for 20 minutes and then we'll have about 5 minutes of questions from me. Maybe some of your brother classmates want to ask questions. They can. Um, please don't think that everybody has to talk. Okay? Okay? Not everybody has to talk. Why? Because you're not going to be graded on how you speak, on how you reported. Basically, it's just how well you thought about the question, how well you did the research, how you applied the philosophical framework to understanding the reality you discuss. So basically, you just have to research well. What is this thing you're talking about? Don't invent what you're saying. Really make sure you're talking about something. Then analyze it, then try to explain it from the perspective of Harari's understanding of a fiction. And also, if you want to bring in the other philosophical frameworks that we use, like for instance, social contract, like how this fiction helps us to build how it helps us articulate what our social contract is, or this is the basis of our social contract, or this fiction is this way because it reflects the natural law, which we believe gathers us, things like that, right? You might see that first you that you were able to analyze using one. Okay. Said, do you have any questions? Are you having any difficulties? Many difficulties. Too many to discuss. All right. Since you're confident, I'll be confident too. All right. Um, so this is a report that you want to give in class, and it's 20 minutes. By the way, if you want to record your report, you know what like I don't know if it's better for you or not, but if you feel for some reason that it's better for you to pre-record your report, you can just plug it right to the computer and let it play, and then we'll just ask questions from you after. If you feel that's more neat or easier or better for some reason, you can do that. Okay? Right. So it's up to you. It's up to you how you want to do your report and the format. Okay. Doesn't have to be a show. Okay. I mean, you don't have to make it like entertaining. You just have to make it um well analyzed. Do a very good analysis. Okay. Doesn't have to. You don't have to do cute things to entertain us because you're
Sir,
too
you
old.
sir, you don't have idea what we're planning.
Oh no. That's why when you started smiling, I think that's why I had to think na, maybe I'm gonna just have to fail you guys. Nah, I'm kidding.
Can you just let us be, sir? We have some plans.
All right, fine. But
Well,
just
I know
make
it's not
sure.
gonna be it will not affect our grades, but we would like to do it.
Yeah, go ahead. As long as you don't forget to do the analysis, I don't really care what you do. Aha. Okay. Then we have so much to look forward to next. All
Thank you,
right,
sir.
guys.
Thank you
So,
po.
yeah, remember lang ano. And then we'll have a final test right after that. But the final test is this. It's a take-home test. It's a take-home test. And it will be based on your report. Okay, so it's just basically, it's like, it's just like what we do whenever we have a group report, we have an individual thing after. Yeah, this is just like that. Okay, but maybe it will be 3 questions based on your report. Okay, all right. So don't worry about it. You won't have to do any extra studying for the final test. You will have to reflect well and participate well in crafting your report. Okay? Because that means you have to know your report. When will the final exam be? Oh yeah, that's what I want to ask you guys. When do you want to have a final exam? What if we just don't have a final exam and just pretend we did, and I'll just give you all a 1.5? No, I'm kidding. Don't get excited. I'm not gonna do it.
Sir, why
But don't
not,
worry.
sir?
Why not? I don't know. You're not bribing me. No, I'm kidding. No. How dare you? Um, anyway, I just make a list of things I need. No, I'm just kidding. No. Yeah, but when do you want it? During exam week, before exam week, or after exam week? Because next week is the last week, right? Of school. Do you want it like on that day? Because it's over, like how all our other tests is, it's overnight. Diba? No, Nadim, you cannot have a free test. Yeah, but what about what about do you want it before your other tests, or do you want it the week after your other tests?
Maybe just this is just an opinion, sir. Ha? I would
Yes.
like to know the consensus of everybody. I suggest
Yeah.
that you are going to make the deadline after the the exam week, since it's a deadline, so we can decide if we want to pass it earlier. So it's up to us.
Ah, okay. So like if you want the official start of the test will be Friday of exam week, and then the official submission is Monday midnight. So if you want to just answer it the whole of Monday, which you can, the week after exam week, that would be fine for me. Is that what you want?
Yes, sir. I
Yeah.
don't know with my other classmates, but for
Any
me,
objection? Yeah, okay. That sounds like a good idea though. Except Medel, you have to remind me next week to do it. Okay. Great. I have to just hear the reports first before I can do it. Then, if that's agreed, that means I will. So, next week is the report. Friday, the week after that, I'll bring out the question, and then I'll wait for the answer on Monday at midnight, the week after exams. Which means you can ignore it the whole weekend if you like and just answer it on Monday. Because that will be the only thing you'll do, right? So that would be fine. Okay? Yes? Very good. All right. So there. What else? Okay. So I'm hoping today's lecture won't be very long, so that you might want to take the time to plan and discuss your reports for next week. But anyway, first question though that I want to discuss. Okay, maybe it might not that long, but anyway, I'm gonna try. Okay. So the first question that I want to discuss, which you're probably wondering, is why are we ending with Harari? Okay, why are we ending with Harari? Because first of all, he's not a philosopher. Okay, he's kind of a philosopher, kind of, because he's a no. But he is really is a big historian. What does a big historian mean? Means the kind of person who does history, who tries to explain history from the whole experience of humankind. That's really what it means. From evolution, from the beginning of Homo sapiens until today, and then they even try to understand, well, in the future, what will it look like? they try to do that kind of prediction. That's what a big historian means. It doesn't have to do with their size. Okay. Yeah. It has to do with the scope of what they're reflecting on. And Harari is one of those. Okay. It's a new field. Um, that's why I like him, because he gives us a framework for understanding our evolution, why we're here, how we got here, what we're about. And then it's really fruitful for philosophical reflection, especially when you want to understand what today is like and where are we headed with our reflections. Okay? So that's who Harari is. And you might be wondering, well, why are we um working with him? Actually, a lot of my philosophical writing in the last 2 years has been dialoguing with him. So, and the reason why is because precisely of his understanding of fictions. Because I'm a I'm a person who works. I'm a researcher of social and political philosophy, mainly social though, and about social justice. That's basically my work, eh. And that's the only reason I'm into politics. I'm not really that interested in politics per se, but I'm interested in politics for social justice, especially with regard to poverty, because that's my area. Poverty and justice. Okay, I don't really know what my area is. I write about different things, but anyway, that's it. So, why Harari? You know, I I thought it would be good to discuss Harari because we have all these theories about a political society and how we build a society. And it's good to know all these theories because it will help you theorize and understand the realities of your society. But Harari's theory and fiction helps us to understand why those theories are important. And why are those theories important? Because philosophers themselves try to articulate a fiction, right? A fiction of the republic, a fiction of the the human state founded on human laws but rooted in natural law in a world governed by eternal law, and the fiction of democracy and the social contract. These are all fictions, right? And these are all fictions that have actually shaped the world we live in today. Today, we are in a world where these fictions actually help us understand and interpret the realities that we live in, especially with regard to our understanding of what our rights and duties are and why we come together to build a society and why it's important that we build societies and states that are founded on the principles of fairness, equality, and social justice. Because it's not necessarily that. We could actually be saying to each other that the reason we come together in a state is in order to serve the sovereign, and the sovereign is whoever is able to control power and retain power, right? That's a fiction. Doesn't have to be the social contract, doesn't have to be democratic, doesn't have to be anything. We as long as somebody thinks about it, it's coherent, it makes sense. It makes sense to the realities we experience and how we live, and it makes sense um, in the way that we can build lives and states and shared communities based on that, right? And that's why I gave you Harari's theory about fictions in order for you to appreciate why political philosophy and philosophical theories about politics and society and the state are necessary because they're fictions. Okay? And they're fictions that gather us into collective action and sustained collective action. Because as long as the fiction lasts, we are able to create institutions, able to create systems, we're able to create traditions that allow us to act according to those fictions. Okay. The reason why I'm asking you, I'm allowing you, allowing, no, yeah, right. The reason why I'm allowing you to work on your own orders, for instance, or your communities or whatnot. I don't know what are you working on. Maybe are you all working on your orders? Yes. Who isn't working on their order? No one. Wow, everyone's working on their orders. How interesting.
What is
Okay.
working on our orders? I'm sorry.
Like a fiction related to your order. Aren't you like you? Di ba? Aren't you guys working on Carmel
Ah,
or the Carmel?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
there. Okay, I don't mean working on your orders to subvert them. Okay, don't subvert your orders, please. Um, okay. So yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Um, is Bien the only secular? Yeah, right. We've established that. Wow, Bien, you're the marginalized person in this group. Anyway, yeah. But even San Jose, I'm sure, has a fiction that makes people want to study there and believe in it. And I'm sure there's the reason there's a I mean, guys, if you guys don't know where Bien, I mean the school of Bien is, I mean his formation house is San Jose Seminary. And I know a lot of there've been a lot of how do you say this? There have been a lot of superstars that studied in San Jose. For instance, the next pope will come from San Jose. I'm kidding. Who knows, right? But Cardinal Tagle is from San Jose, who is now the international star in a sense, right? Because he's like one of the favorites of, or not na ba? Has he fallen from grace? I don't know. Okay, anyway, yeah, but one of the stars is and it's so interesting because whenever they have homecomings, all these people from all over who studied in San Jose come back, right? Um, yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm not even going. Okay. Anyway, that's why do you think I'm so nice to Bien? Because if he becomes bishop or pope one day, um, he has to remember me. Okay. Yeah. He has to appoint. Bien, you have to appoint me even, okay, yeah, none of you will become pope, no? Kasi, ay, hindi pwede. Right? But anyway, if any of you become pope, like if, Medel, you become the first Carmelite pope, um, appoint me naman to something advisory. Okay. Even if I don't do anything, as long as I get anyway. So anyway, sorry. But even San Jose has a story, has a myth, has a fiction which draws all these cardinals and bishops to come back every homecoming because they have a love for it. And I'm sure it has such a deep influence in how they carry themselves, right? And how they carry themselves and how they realize themselves. So there. Um, what's my point? My point is every social grouping that is effective and sustained and can actually act in the world in such a way that it influences the world, all our institutions are founded on fictions, right? And they're able to gather people in effective action, diba? And allow them to participate in such a way that to be able to function in such a way that there's a governing body that shapes their actions and they're able to allow themselves to be governed by that governing body, whatever it is, because they all believe in the fiction. Otherwise, you won't believe, you won't allow yourself, right? For instance, like I always say, why are you wasting 2 years of your life on something as useless as pre-theology? Right? Right? And you're all coming to but at least LST is not the only one, right, who has pre-theology. I mean, it's either pre-theology or something else, post or philosophy, like but anyway, whatever it is. Um, um, but this pre-theology
Recording
program,
stopped.
Oh, they stopped recording us.
Recording
Maybe
in
ano,
progress.
it's back again. Okay, anyway, I'm so confused. Anyway, um, yeah. So, yes, this whole, um, like for instance, the fact that you allow yourself to subject to be subjected to 2 years of studies, and then to allow yourself to study this kind of philosophy, and then to just study hard and fulfill it. This is all because you believe in the fiction that the Catholic Church is an institution that will allow you to realize your human flourishing, right? And this is based on the fiction of Christ, that who came to be our Savior, our Lord and Savior, who brings us to, who introduces us to, or teaches us, or shows us the way to become, to dwelling in the love of our Father, right? Of God, the love of God. Um, and this fiction has drawn you to submit yourself to this process of education, which I'm sure most of you don't really appreciate that much. Right? I mean, I don't know. Guys, if you think philosophy is hard, theology is harder. It's a whole new language of very technical language, right? And so why would you want to do that on purpose? Oh, because you believe in the fiction of the church, and you believe in the fiction of your order. Okay, so that's why I think the idea of fictions is so important. Um, is it properly a philosophical idea? Uh, I think it is in how we use it, right? Basically, the question of fiction in relation to how does it help us realize our human flourishing is a philosophical idea. Okay, you notice, if you notice, when you're reading Harari, he just talks about fictions as he describes how it works. He describes how it works. He doesn't think about it as leading to our human flourishing or not. Why not? He's not a philosopher. He's a historian. But us, since we're doing political philosophy, the question we ask is this fiction true? If it's not true, what is it? And can it lead us to human flourishing, especially as a collective? Because in political philosophy, we think about the collective, how we act as a collective, how we act together to realize our common good. Okay? Although even the common good's a fiction, right? What if there's no common good? What if it's all individual good? And then the natural. You remember um, how Rousseau described the natural man, right? What if that's really how we are? And then the only reason why we act so civilly and friendly towards each other is because we have this shared fiction that we have to live together in cooperation in order to realize ourselves, in order to realize in order to achieve a good human life where we all cooperate with each other and bring each other to human flourishing, right? That's a fiction. Everything's a fiction. And if only shared fictions can bring us together. Why? Because human beings cannot act without meaningful, without a reason, without a framework for giving them meaning for their actions. See, the human mind cannot act without understanding, um the human mind cannot act without um realizing and without understanding why it should do something. It should be convinced why it should do something. Because not like an animal, animals just act on instinct, right? They just instinctively know that they should act cooperatively. And then instinctively, the systems of cooperation are already embedded in their DNA. We need to know why. We need to understand that this is really beneficial. We need to understand that this is going to help us. And we need to understand that if we do this, it will lead to human flourishing. That's why we need fictions to gather us. Okay. So in this course, we focus on three. Okay. We focused on three fictions. Okay. The first, just to show you really what the what political theory looks like, which is very intuitive, which is oriented towards the transcendent, what it looks like, and how it could probably be built according to one philosopher. We studied Plato. Okay? When we studied Plato, we try to understand what does it mean to be a good citizen, what does it mean to be a part of the state, but ultimately, what is the state trying to lead us to? And what is the state and what is our living together as human beings in a single polis? What is the objective of that? The objective of that is to help us live an ordered life where each one is, which is like one body or the eyes, right? It's just one body that seeks to realize itself according to the idols of every, right? Who has reason, who has instincts, who has appetites, and who has drives. All of that philosophers will have different divisions of what the human being is. But the idea basically for Plato is this, that there's a realm which we call the eidos, which we all have to live according to. Like all of us have to live our lives, we all of us have to live our lives according to this eternal order, which is in the realm of the eidos, right? But the only way we can know if our lives are oriented towards the eidos is if we are able to intuit the eidos and reflect on the eidos and contemplate on the eidos. And only a few people are capable of doing that because it needs a lot of training and it needs a certain aptitude. So that's what rulers are. Okay, who governs us? Who governs us? The eidos ensure that every aspect of society, how it's structured, how we live, will lead us to live lives that are attuned to the idols. That's all. And remember, the way he makes the way he the way he describes the way the guardians should live, right? I don't think any of you will pass being a guardian, right? Especially the Jesuits, because the Jesuits are spoiled. No, but you know, maybe monks, di ba? Monks would probably be fit the kind of enough guardians, but then monks aren't naman warriors. I know, maybe Shaolin priests that's who will be able to pass as a guardian, right? But then who's a philosopher king? Really, basically, the philosopher king is the one so immersed in the realm of the Eidos, who so understands the realm of the Eidos in such a deep and profound and insightful way that he can see how we can structure our societies in such a way that everything we do is oriented towards fulfilling, is oriented towards leading us all to realize the order of the Eidos, of the eternal order of the Eidos. Even if you don't know what the Eidos is. You know what I mean? Even if you don't know what the Eidos is, even if you haven't lived according to the Eidos, even if you don't have an intuition of the Eidos, it's just that the guardians and the philosophers have structured the philosopher king has structured the society so well that the system itself, just because you're in that system, will orient you towards the idos, right there. Which is what I think that's basically the idea of your seminaries, right? They're trying to make you live in such a way that that you have structure, like you guys have structured lives, right? I think more than anyone, I mean, more than normal students. Of course, you're all not normal. Because if you're normal, why would you want to be a priest? Anyway, but more than normal students, right? You guys, your lives are structured, diba? You have study time, you have leisure time, you have prayer time, and these are all very structured, right? Because in a sense, and then how you live together, the fact that superiors act this way and have to live this way, they really do live according to how your order not really. I mean, you're, diba, the priests take turn. Maybe your founder is like the philosopher king who had an intuition into the idos, and then the constitution as it's built could actually be a very deep and insightful understanding on what kind of life, what kind of community life will allow people to live, such that if they just follow it automatically, they will be realizing and participating in the order of the idos. That's one way to interpret your orders, right? Like someone had an intuition into the eternal, right? Somebody had an intuition into the idos, and then that somebody said, okay, and then maybe a few of them, came together, and they all had this intuition to the idos, and they said, oh, let's create a society, okay, where the structure of how we live in that society, how we work in that society, how we are formed in that society will ensure that everyone, even the most the lowest person, the so-called lowest person in that society, who may not even have a direct intuition into the idos, the eternal, will still be able to live in a way that is faithful to the eternal, just because he's under that structure, under that system. You understand, right? So that's the fiction. First of all, the fiction of Plato's Republic is that there is such a thing as the realm of the idos, and it's an eternal realm where everyone should participate in. And the fiction is it's possible, it's really possible for certain people to directly intuit that realm. Okay. And with the direct intuition into that realm, with the direct insight into that realm, we all are able to participate in that realm, as long as the society is structured well, so that we all have some kind of orientation towards the idos. And as one body, we are like a unity that lives in cooperation to live according to the idos. Right? That's basically his fiction, and based on that fiction, we see the political society. Saint Thomas's fiction is Christianity, right? That's clear, right? And again, don't get scandalized. I'm not saying Christianity is false. Okay, it's a fiction though, in the sense that it's a story, it's a symbolic system, which we all, for which Saint Thomas believed, actually articulated the truth about being, why anything exists, why we all live, what's the meaning of our existence, and what we desire to realize in our existence. That's basically what Christianity answers, right? Christianity gives the answer to all of those things. Why is there something and not nothing? Why do human beings exist? What is the meaning of human existence? If this is the meaning of human existence, why should human beings exist in a community or a state or a polity, right? And what is the point of all that? Now, the answer to all that is rooted in the simple answer that in the beginning there was nothing. God created all things according to God's love. God's love is the very order of all things. Anything that exists, anything that exists is sustained and guided by God's intelligence and love. Right? Although sometimes when you read St. Thomas, it seems like God is more of an intelligence than love. Right? Not like St. Ignatius, everything's love, love, love. But St. Thomas seems more that, and at times when you read St. Thomas, it seems that God is the divine intellect, right? Who is also the divine good. But anyway, the point is, according to Christian fiction, according to the Christian fiction, um, everything exists because there is this God who desired to create the world because of love. In his generosity and love, God made things come to be. And in their coming to existence, um, when all things come into existence, in their becoming, God sustains and guides them in their being. So all things are ordered according to God's love and God's intelligence, leading all everything to their human flourishing. Human beings, and this is part of the fiction, are participate in that order using their intelligence because we are capable of understanding and we need to participate in that order according to our intelligence and also our will. So the only way to realize our human flourishing and our human fullness is to realize our to participate in the eternal order of of the eternal law, in order to participate in the eternal law. But in our case, through our will and through our intellect, right? We understand it and we love God and we love the order of the universe and we love all things. So, given that, um, it seems that part of that order is that we should come together in societies, in communities. And in coming together in those communities, there have to be laws that govern us. There have to be systems that govern us. Now, what's the basis of those systems? Well, the natural law, because that's how human beings understand the eternal order, right? But be, but the natural law is really the law, human understanding of the laws of God based on a certain deep attunement to God, right? But then, yeah, but then these are very general postulates. These are very general postulates about the order of the universe. And yet, so in every community, in in order to respond to very concrete situations, we have up with laws, um, human laws, to help us understand how to live according to uh, in order to live in a way that realizes the good, the common good, the common good. And that's why we come together in communities, because we live together in order to realize our common good, because it's impossible. So, if we're going to need to live in communities according to the common good, the way we act with towards each other, the way we act in as a community towards other communities, and I guess the way we act also in relation to nature must be governed by the eternal law, which is understood as natural law, which is translated to human law in concrete and particular circumstances and communities. But the fiction really is the fundamental fiction is that the world was created, all things came to be because of because of intelligent, a supreme and transcendent intelligence and love, right? A being who created all things out of love, but also gave them order according to his or that being's intelligence. And based on that, we all seek to participate in that. Okay. Now, according to the eternal law, as articulated by Jesus, there is such a thing as the kingdom of God, right? And we, as Christians, that's part of our fiction, that there's such a thing as the kingdom of God, and we seek to order our societies according to that kingdom, whatever we imagine it to be and however we imagine it to be. But the basics of that kingdom is it's governed by God in love and justice and intelligence, so that all things come to their human flourish, all things come to their flourishing, particularly and especially human beings. Okay, right? Do you see it? Do you see how that fiction works there? Right. Then finally, at least in order for us to understand modern societies a bit more, um, we see that Rousseau came up with the fiction of the fiction of the social contract. Wait, before I continue, you know what though? Even if philosophers come up with these fictions, okay, no fiction of a philosopher will survive or be something we study even if they don't echo the way people if they don't echo what people experience or think, right? So when Plato articulated this, it's not that everybody experience the world this way, but it's probably also it all probably resonates, eh. Otherwise, why will we be studying it today, right? So somehow it resonates, right? So there. So okay, sorry again. So if you think of your society, if you think of your orders as as a political body, as a political unit, and you think of it in terms of Saint Thomas's fiction, basically, we all desire to build a community that reflects God's kingdom, which is a kingdom of and justice, and goodness that will lead to our flourishing, right? And that's why your constitutions and your systems are structured in such a way that everybody at every moment of your shared lives is thinking about and loving God, right? So that's how your political structure, and that's why your political structures are built the way they are. Your governing structures, your structures of governance are built the way they are in order for your superiors to be able to govern your shared community in such a way that you all cooperate and continue to cooperate to and continue to live in such a way as a community that guides each other and helps each other to realize God's love, right? Because God's kingdom in your hearts and in your community, right? Because ultimately that's the point naman of your order, eh, so that it exists to guide its members towards a continuous and deep love of God, 'di ba, in their daily lives. Otherwise, what's the point of your community? You know what I mean, right? So there, that's done. Anyway, so that's the second thing. The third thing is yeah, Rousseau again, but the fiction is, well, first of all, he believes that there's such a thing as the natural man. That's a fiction, clearly. He has a story to it that explains why we need a social contract. So his fiction is that there's such that if people come together according to the social contract, it will allow people who are autonomous and rational to live together in such a way without having to give up their freedom or autonomy, and be able to legislate for themselves and yet be subject to a government and a sovereign, because ultimately the sovereign is themselves and the government represents their general will. That's a fiction, right? A fiction which is so pervasive that up to today, that's the fiction that really governs most Western governments, most Western polities, and in a way shapes really everyone's conception of good governance. Well, because of the influence, I guess, of the West, right? Even the Communist Party of China, right? They also live by that fiction, because in the end, in the Communist Party of China is the government that represents the sovereign, but who's the sovereign? It's the people, right? The People's Republic of China, and that, is really governed by the sovereign, who is the people. What's the party, and what's the government being ruled by the party? It's really still a party that exists according to the social contract, right? Even if they say Biden recently, this is so stupid. After Biden, did you hear about this? So Biden and she met each other and had a good sort of discussion and agreed on very many important things, because I think America and China are on the brink of some form of conflict. But then they stepped back from it because they had a good meeting with Xi. And but then in the press conference right after that meeting, a reporter got Biden to say that he thinks that she's still a dictator anyway. So stupid. Anyway, um, it's not very diplomatic. That's all I can say. I'm not the president of any country, but I'm smart enough not to do that right after a very important meeting. Anyway, even if you think that the Communist Party is a dictatorship, it's not a dictatorship for itself, supposedly, right? Their fiction is it's a dictatorship for the proletariat, for the people, for the peasants, right? So it's the vanguard, right? But basically, there's a social contract there. The revolution was started because of a social contract, and the contract was, we'll support you, and then you establish this state, and then you can be the dictator for a while until you make sure that the country is already acting in such a way that we have established a good government, and then we can democratize more, right? But there's a social contract there. So any government has to justify itself these days according to the social contract. Listen to the language of politicians. They're all talking according to the fiction of the social contract. And the fiction there is that human beings are autonomous, they're free, and they only come together in order to realize the common good, or and the common good is realized if people can come together to form the general will, which will make them the sovereign, that shapes and determines how they live together, which is the social contract, and who will govern them for them, okay, which is the government. Now that's your basic social contract that exists in most countries today, because most countries today are to some degree influenced by Western conceptions of good government, which is why we thought about. Well, that's why we studied political theory, explaining these Western theories. Okay, these Western theories. But why? Okay, so now back to Harari. Why did I bring in though the theory of fictions and why fictions bring us together? I think it's a more realistic way of studying politics, right? Because you guys, you will be um priests in the world, right? Hopefully, right? Okay. Um, Don't worry, guys. And a nun. Okay. But then sister's already a nun. So I don't even know why she's studying. No, I'm just kidding, sister. I know why you're studying. Anyway, but you guys are all gonna be priests. You know why I know? Because I made a deal with Jesus, and I said, Lord, anyone who goes through my class has to become a priest. And he said, yes. Imagine that. No, I'm kidding. You might believe me. Don't believe me. That's a lie and not just a fiction. Anyway, but I really hope so. That's my dream. That's my wish. But of course, you don't know what your real vocation is until you know it. But anyway, my point is, you guys, even if you don't become priests, you're going to be some kind of lead. You're going to have probably some leadership position in the church. You know what I mean? Because you're already connected to the system. Even if you leave the system, like you say, okay, and then what if your formators say, you know what, you're really good, you're really smart, and you're really a very talented person, but I don't think you're being called to the priesthood, you know, because we don't discern that. Not you're a bad person, it's just that God's not calling you to the priesthood. Maybe He's calling you to something else. And then you say, okay, fine, I'm going to be whatever, right? Whatever you're going to be is probably still going to be connected to the church, I think, right? Because you invested so much of your life already. Should I say wasted or invested so much of your life already in the church? You're probably still going to do some church thing. So, sorry. The fact is, most of you are going to probably be leaders somehow in the church, or even not in the church, even not in the church, in your community. The fact that you're here in LST, yeah, the fact that you're here in LST must mean that you already have some. They actually see some quality in you that makes you um higher. I mean, in a potential leadership position, which are what priests are anyway, leaders in the church, and nuns too are leaders in the church, right? Anyway, what's my point? My point is, when you're leaders of the church or you're leaders of community, you have to understand how to gather people into meaningful action, right? Which means you have to understand which fiction gathers them together. And also, you have to be able to analyze if those fictions will lead to human flourishing, to solidarity, or to brokenness and divisiveness, right? Because, like, make America great again, that whole crazy thing that's going on in America, right? That whole MAGA thing, that's a fiction that that Trump sold to everyone, and now everybody and so many people believe it. And what does it do? It's really a destructive fiction, right? If Christianity is a creative fiction, MAGA is a destructive fiction. Seems like something straight from the devil, diba? But what about that war on drugs? That's a fiction, right? That's a fiction. Everyone, a lot of people subscribed to and supported. And what did it lead to? The deaths of thousands, right? It's like Duterte in less time killed more people than Marcos did. It's true though, right? I mean, he really killed so much more people than Marcos did. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe it's because there are more Filipinos now than during Marcos' time. So I did the calculation, proportions, like how many percent of the population did Marcos kill versus how much percent of the population did Duterte kill. I forgot already what the answer was, but it's considerably more. Duterte's really so much more a killer, right? And the reason why he was able to do that is because people believed in the fiction. A fiction sold social media. So that's something you also have to be careful about, because social media is really intensely selling fictions that are not necessarily creative. Many of those fictions are actually destructive, right? So as leaders of communities of the church, I think you have to be aware of the fact that people act according to the fictions that they're sold, right? And fictions can be creative and destructive, but fictions can be revised or changed, right? Like any story, you can change the story. If it's destructive, change the story, right? That's what Jesus did anyway, right? He came to the Jews, and then they were living according to this very oppressive fiction that the Pharisees were selling, and he came to change the story, or at least bring the story back to the truth, you know. And because of that, he died for it, but we live for it, you know. We our lives have been changed because of that fiction, and now it allows us to flourish as human beings, right? Okay. So there. It's very important. That's why this is my last lesson, which for me is connected to the realities of Asia. Because all of us here are Asian, right? Or except for the Malinese, except for the islanders. We're all Asians. And the islanders are also though share similar what do you call that? Similar cultures as us, right? And our people, more than ever, are still really governed very much by fictions that shape our lives, right? Like anyone. But for us, at least, that's the best way to understand our people, and not according to theories of like what theory are they following, what's their theory of what's their philosophy of good governance and all of that. They're probably the more important question to ask really is what story governs our people, what fiction drives them and shapes their lives and allows them to live in the way that they live and do the things that they do and sacrifice for what they sacrifice for. What's the Israeli fiction that's allowing them to be so inhuman? What is the Hamas fiction that allowed them to be so inhuman? And what is the Palestinian fiction of the people in Gaza that allows them to survive from day to day? You know, it's the same for you. You ask yourself that, right? In Myanmar, what's the fiction that the government is selling? And those resisting the government, what's their fiction, right? And which is the more creative fiction to have to unite the people? Like in the Philippines today, clearly there's the fiction of Marcos as a great leader, Ferdinand Marcos as the great leader, right? And Bongbong Marcos will live up to that legacy. That's the prevailing fiction now, right? But how do we what is really the fiction that shapes the understanding of the politicians, which is really so and then there's the fiction that the reformers adhere to, and then there's the fiction of the people in the grassroots. So all different fictions, right? And how do you reconcile those, and how do you make it so in such a way that's creative, right? There. So that's why it's important to think about fiction and to understand fictions in relation to social theory. Because social theory in the end, a political theory in the end, is really about philosophers articulating a kind of theoretical fiction that will allow us to build our states, right? Help us articulate and understand their states. But ultimately, we have to understand that these fictions can be so pervasive that they really act like instincts already. And as leaders, as people there, you have to be able to articulate the fictions in order for people to not be led astray and to be able to still live authentic human lives. Okay, there. So I hope that also helps you understand how to do your papers. Did you guys saw it, right? When I made that extra recording, I hope so. Uh, sorry it came so late. I was trying to figure. I was still working on it, and then I was only able to record it at night. And then it takes so long for Zoom to translate recordings into something you can actually share. So there, that was thing. But I think that one is important for because I want you to also understand that the problem also is that fictions can be imposed. The fictions can be imposed, and if they're imposed in a society, most of the time people won't really accept it fully, and then some people could accept it fully, and then the whole society is living under a fiction like that. Okay, if it's imposed, because fictions are supposed to grow organically. Yes, science is definitely a fiction, Nadim. The fiction that there is a form of knowledge that leads us to the most accurate and most authentic kind of knowledge. That's a fiction, right? And then science also builds a language, which is a fiction that helps us to interpret the world, like atoms and forces and energies. That's a fiction too. The reason it works is because the whole scientific community believes it, and then also they know how they test it in such a way that defines what's acceptable and not acceptable to them. Okay, so yeah, the imposition of fictions is a very real thing. Especially for us, everyone in this room is colonized, right? We have all been colonized, which means your colonizer, and these days mainly America, has imposed its fiction upon the world, diba? And a lot of people live lives according to those fictions, but in the end, they don't really lead to human flourishing. So we have to be critical also about imposed fictions, and we have to find ways to, first of all, discover what these fictions are, and then articulate them, and then understand how to respond to them creatively. Yeah. That's why, for instance, China and Russia today are trying to create counter fictions, to counter the Western fiction of what a good global civilization is. But you know what? We all have to really try to engage that discourse, because as global warming comes, global warming will change the way we live. I don't think like the way global capitalism and the global market has been imposed on us, I don't think that's sustainable anymore. So we'll really have to come up with new fictions that will define our civilization, so that it's more sustainable, it's more just, and it's more um so that it's also more livable and will lead to genuine human flourishing. So it's really an exciting time for fictions. It's a time when we actually have to rethink these fictions. Okay. Yeah, we were actually living in a world of fictions, in the sense that all human beings have to articulate a story, a fiction that will make the world make sense to them. Okay, so all the worlds we live in, we are all living in a fiction, but it's a way of interpreting reality. So in short, it's still connected to reality. It's the best way we understand reality. It's the best way we realize our existence. Okay, so if the question is this fiction fruitful? For some, the question basically is this fiction gonna lead us to human flourishing? That's the only question. Because if it doesn't, then it's not a good fiction. It's destructive. So we have to find a more creative question. Yes, Nadim. Can one um can one fiction refute its own fiction? You mean can somebody living within a fiction be critical of that fiction? Yeah. Yes. I think so. That's what, like, basically it's like your fiction, you're probably living in a fiction, and then you're so immersed in that fiction, but variations of the story emerge which allow you to critique the fiction you're living in, right? Like we see, for instance, how Western people who are living under the fiction of capitalism and consumerism are beginning to question that fiction. Then they're beginning to either look for other fictions that are more fruitful. So they're going to go to Buddhism or Christianity or more traditional cultures, right? Then they're going to try to incorporate it into their own fiction as Western people. So, oh, we refuse to live according to consumerism already. So some of them are taking Zen minimalism, which is another fiction, that kind of thing, or Buddhism, and then they're living lives that are still within their fiction, but they're trying to modify their fiction. They're also taking in other ways of understanding reality, which are borrowing from other fictions or even changing other fictions with the way they live. So that's why you'll see some people saying, I won't live anymore in a Western style civilization. I'm gonna go live with other people have a different fiction, have a better, more human fiction, right? So you hear stories about, like, the cliche is a white person will live in Tibet with the monks. Okay. Um, yes, exactly, Nico. The power of fictions lies in its ability to shape our perspectives and influence how we live and how we shape our lives. That's really it. And that's why, and the thing to realize again is the fictions come from us. There are two important things to remember. The fictions come from us, right? So we can change them, we can rethink them. But first, you have to be conscious of them, how they're affecting you. But secondly, the fictions are supposed to be talking about reality. Okay, so if fictions are not an escape from reality, there are instruments for understanding reality, immersing in reality, and engaging reality creatively. So if they veer away from reality, then the fiction is not a good one, right? Which is what's happening to consumerism. It was the great fiction that was sold to us, Western consumerism and economics, the economics of endless growth, right? That was the basic fiction. There's an economics of endless growth which will be fed by consumerism. Okay, so that will lead us to human flourishing. Not only did it not lead us to human flourishing, now it's leading to human extinction potentially. It's not, but potentially, right? So don't panic. But global warming is basically the fruit of the Western fiction of consumerism and endless growth, right? So now you know what people are beginning to rethink the fiction. So there's one fiction from economists that they're calling prosperity without growth. So they're trying to redefine prosperity without being driven by consumerism and owning things, but another basis of um, prosperity, what prosperity means. So there's that, right? There's the counter fiction. Okay. All right. So there, I summed up the course and I brought us to where we're at and showed you how this whole theory about fictions can really help us analyze the world we live in, especially when you're living with your communities, because it will help you. The awareness of it alone is already very important. All right. So there. Now I'm done. I'm done. We'll meet the next week to wrap to for your reports and then to wrap up. But my question now is, does anyone want to consult me as a group? No. Do you want to meet? But then do you want to meet? I can make breakout rooms. Yeah, do you want me to make a breakout room? Do you want me to make a breakout room? All right. How many breakout rooms so that you guys can meet? Can you raise your hand? One person per group who wants a breakout room, raise your hand. No, no, just one. Oh, Nico lang. Nico, your group lang. But then we don't have to make a breakout room. We just have to leave the room for you guys. Then you just end the meeting. I'll make you na lang the host, Nico. Okay, and then you can just end it. So you can meet with your group. Wait a minute. There. Wait lang, I'm gonna look for your name. Oh no. There. Okay. Um, wait, host. Okay, you're the host now. Nico, did you see you're the host? All right. Okay, so everyone, bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Just stop the recording pala, Nico. Baka it will record your discussion. Bye, everyone.
Recording
Bye,
stopped.
Nadim. Have fun in heaven. Bye-bye.
I thought he will be here
Where's sir?
for the consultation.